If you don't have wheatgrass, what combination of vegetables will replace it? Well, the short answer is nothing will replace wheatgrass. And it's not because I direct Hippocrates I say that. It's because I've been reading for decades the literature on phytonutrients and phytochemicals. If any of you have followed that, and some of the most interesting work is now coming out of the University of Oregon, Corvallis, the Linus Pauling Center there. And what has been said globally with phytochemical research, and let me stop there and tell you what a phytochemical is. Phytochemicals are natural occurring chemistries that we find in raw plant foods, fruits and vegetables. They were discovered, frankly, by mistake some decades ago because we realized in agricultural science that every plant that was an original plant from its original geographic location naturally had its own pesticide on it. Now, this was well before mankind. These pesticides were there to save this species of plants so that the last plant will not be eaten by the insects or the animals in that area. Isn't that amazing? When you think about nature and God and creation and evolution, it's a phenomenal thing to consider what we've now discovered in science. So a very intelligent guy who was a biochemist said, well, my God, if that's a poison for animals and insects, wouldn't it hurt people? Well, when we started to microscopically observe this, he not only found it didn't hurt us, but it helped us. He would watch each and every plant that he extracted, which then was called for the first time a phytonutrient or a phytochemical, chase different diseases. The compilation of all that research brings us to wheatgrass. What they found in the last decade globally is that the foods with the highest amount of these phytochemicals that not only prevent but eliminate disease are sprouted grains. Wheatgrass obviously is a sprouted grain. What differentiates the grain we call wheat from all other grains is that there's approximately 115 elements on the elemental table. What that means is everything that you see, touch, feel, and taste in the universe is made of some of or all of or many of these elements. Again, it's give and take. Every once in a while, somebody comes up with a new element. They may be right or may not be right. Going back to that, wheatgrass has 96% of these elements, or 96 of these elements, not percent. And that's amazing in itself because it's so thorough, it's so full spectrum in what it gives you. And that probably is a reason why sprouted grains, one of the original things that were growing on grasses, the very first life form on this planet was blue-green algae that came out of the ocean. The second life form were sea vegetables. The third life form was grasses, and these grains are from the grass family. What you have to know is that the core of the Hippocrates dietary program is algae, both sea and freshwater algae, we addressed one earlier, and sprouts. And these sprouts have the highest amount of phytochemicals. The scientists now tell us, with hundreds of millions of dollars of research that has been conducted, that the phytochemicals in wheatgrass isolate and destroy every form of cancer they've researched, every form of virus they've researched, and every form of bacteria they've researched. It also greatly reduces the impact from something called spirocate, which is known as Lyme's disease. And we've done oral testing of every guest for a number of years in the past and found that all of us have the spirocate in our mouth. It doesn't always become Lyme's disease, but it's a much greater impact than we think in our environment. So wheatgrass has that. Now let's go to the second. Other sprouts, if you don't have wheatgrass, certainly have uniquely their own impact. Pea green sprouts, which we make green drinks out of, have the propensity to literally help to eat the protein sheathing off cancer cells. Sunflower green sprouts literally are the most magnificent, completely balanced protein, all the essential amino acids. Also has the ability to strengthen red blood cells at a very significant level. So there are different sprouts you can use, but do not consider them as effective as wheatgrass. Wheatgrass powders, we did research when still in Boston. We moved the Institute out of Boston, as you may know, about 21 years ago, after it had resided there for 30 years. At the MIT laboratories, we did the research and showed that wheatgrass powder, as well as today we could add barley powder, is less than 1% effective to fresh wheatgrass juice. Now, anyone who uses common sense would understand that, because what we dry out of the powder is the juice, where the nutrients and the punch is in the juice. So the powders, even if they haven't been heated, have very little effect. If one says to me, what would be the ideal, inexpensive juice for me to make that would give me similar, not exact benefits as wheatgrass? And this is highly inexpensive, providing you're living in an area where weeds still grow. Edible weeds have the same level of frequency, impact, immune powering benefit that sprouts have. So edible weeds, which, by the way, were the very fourth life form on this planet, would also give a very similar impact. Plantain, lamb's quarter, purslane. Purslane has one of the highest fatty acid contents to help the brain, help the cardiovascular system, etc. So that would be my suggestion. As far as vegetables, sadly, most vegetables, most of you listening tonight were picked days, if not weeks, before you consume them. There was a study conducted at the University of California a couple of years ago that showed us after picking a head of lettuce and washing it, 32 minutes later, 50% of the nutrient effect was gone. What hope do we have weeks or days later? But the green vegetables freshly out of your garden, your organic gardens, would certainly be comparable in the chlorophyll category. Wheatgrass has an abundance of hormones, an abundance of oxygen, an abundance of phytochemicals, and an abundance of enzymes. And it's that in living food, not only wheatgrass, it's that in living food that brings us back to life, successfully retards disease processes, helps us remedy disease, and also prevents the premature aging process.